Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 5th of October. Well, you can see we had the initial saving grace, so to speak, of the decline that was taking place. We popped back up, but it was really soft. No reset from the steel. That was back here when we couldn't get a dip to give it any support, and we saw what happened after that. Likewise, we've already got still another rollover the shakeout. We've got declining red DOC. We've got no real change from a power mode 2 effect. As these two narrow, the magenta and the green, usually that's softer than strong. It's what you're looking for is the separation if you're looking for a bounce. Now, does that mean it's catastrophic? Well, in this particular case, because you don't have a spike of orange, you're not getting a swift drive down, but that can change pretty quickly because we're almost above it at 73 versus the steel at 128. So we'll keep an eye out. I think right now you've got a little bit of plus. President was showing better signs, so I think that kind of avoided a catastrophic market meltdown, as it looked like he's going to fare fairly decently on this. He was out driving around in front of supporters the other day. From an NQ standpoint, it's been doing slightly better in general, but nonetheless still with the same kind of softness here where you have cyan clearly riding above. The potential of having steel cross below the cyan, which would be a much stronger negative. It's right there. I mean, they're pretty close. It could pivot around back, but you get the same very large separation here between the magenta and that. Again, it's this when they combine together and then break apart is where we look for the added expansion. So not looking for a whole lot from either of these. Euro continuing its slight press to the upside. And gold just holding on. Again, a lot of this is still just in flux until the election really gets finalized. It's almost impossible now to gauge which polls. So now we're just left with, will there be campaigning, additional debates, and how will things begin to shake out? It doesn't look like many minds are being altered at this particular stage. From an oil standpoint, this is still soft. This is problematic for growth construct until you see opening up of areas. And again, this is an interesting one because as much as people want to say, oh, well, you should be wearing masks, and they weren't, this and that, and that's how the president got affected. He has the stringent protocols for testing and everything else. You can't stop a virus with a mask. It just isn't happening. As many times as people want to say it, it's just not possible. You want other forms of mitigation, fine, but at some point you have to actually live, and this is the balancing point. I really get frustrated at this reporting of just cases, because those don't mean anything. It needs to be cases relative to hospitalizations. And there's a trailing curve to that. And the fact that we don't use math and science anymore and just report the number of cases doesn't mean anything. You can affect all the 18 to 25-year-olds you want, and you're not going to have anybody in the hospital. So what's the point of social distancing them? Anyway, going to our 5K chart, we have very clean from the breakdown. Again, I was talking about this when we start to break down and get to those zeros, and get that dip below the orange under red line on a turnaround. I typically like to, usually I'll cover a short or at least mitigate if I have a significant position in, because I'm looking for any kind of bounce. There's usually not a whole lot. Usually I'm looking at the 23%, but in this particular case, it followed through with the move of the green over cyan. You moved with shakeout above the negative 13. So all the signs were in that it was starting to turn around, and that's where the long short algo, the green dot right there. I have to find out why in my coding that didn't give a colorization, because it should have converted to the green at that point. It then quickly began to soften up, roll over. And again, once you had that steel crossing below, those are the areas that you should look for, like right here when it crossed below, but then immediately it crossed back above and back down again. And that's usually an indication that you've got a lot of weakness, and that it happens to go right to the 50% with no shock. But we ended up with some very nice runs that took us well through, as well as some decent short ones. It took a while for some of these shorts to actually, pay off. But again, that's one of those where I look for that strong orange spike off a DOC spread, particularly, and then also fading of the red, and took place right about there. But being short from that entire range is not wrong. And then, of course, the buy up, which took us all the way back up to the highs and then some more. So it's basically capturing the bulk of most moves. Not worried about capturing the absolute bottoms. You can see where those are, the early signs start right there with that dip. And not much differential between the time that it then flips to, in this case, you had cyan under red pretty darn fast. And that led to the market gap up, which was the news that Trump wasn't dead yet. And we ended up with positive extremes on that got filled. And we're just on the turnaround from those positive extremes at this particular point. So the market's looking healthy. All good from our end. We'll just keep monitoring as it goes, and I'll certainly be sending out any of the updates as they're completed. And it's just going to get cleaner and cleaner for us, which makes it easier, particularly if you don't have to worry about making the reads on the DSC or the Power Mode 2, and you can just follow the colors, and just designed to make it easy, but yet give you the opportunity to understand also why it's taking place and what the dynamic is in the market. As always, trade well. We'll talk again later.